Let me bring up somebody that people do care about here because I wanted to ask you guys. I don't know what's the truest thing now because of the amount of lying that there is around business this time of year. It's Shedeur Sanders that I want to talk about. But just to close the loop on that previous topic, what do you think will happen if I just go over a world of the world's most competitive people and just drop money down there and make them fight over it? Like they're going to use science. The amount of money and pressure that we're talking about in these economies that feed families is what funds sports, the desperation of all that. It's what we're watching. Shedeur Sanders goes into the draft, and I don't know what's real or true about he's dropping. That his arrogance has put off executives, and that Shedeur Sanders may, and I saw this recently, fall right out of the first round, which kind of floored me because there aren't very many good quarterbacks in this draft, and the bottom end of this first round is not very strong. What's the recent on Shedeur Sanders? Because I want to talk about confidence at that position, and I want to talk about belief, and I'm curious what's happening that might be considered real around Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I know that that Louis Riddick came out and said what's happening to Shedeur Sanders is unfair because people are slandering his name, and a lot of this is people reading tea leaves, hearing whispers, and talk show hosts running with this thing. But quite honestly, I think what's happening mostly is he has a very weak arm. If he were in the league right now and he were a starter in the league, I've read people surmise that he'd be number 30, 31, possibly 32 in terms of arm strength. And maybe he shouldn't have been looked at. If this were maybe next year's quarterback class, he wouldn't be discussed as a first-round draft pick. Maybe he's being discussed as a first-round draft pick because it's a hugely important position. And this year, outside of Cam Ward, there really isn't consensus on who can be a franchise-changing guy.
Isn't this what you want if you're Sanders? Okay, I'm going to a better team now. No. Like, he's projected to go to the Steelers, I'm seeing here at 21. I'm just saying, like, I get it. You want to be a top overall pick, but the lower you get in the first round, you get better teams.
I think he can spin it into this is a better spot for me. But no, it's definitely not what he wanted because I think before his bowl game, he came out with cleats that had the Giants logo and the Raiders logo. While the draft order was not yet locked in, these were teams that were talked about as potentially having the number one pick. It's not going the way that he wanted.
If you're a team that wants him, this is what you want to happen because you want him to fall to you because he just kind of starts, plummeting. But no, Shedeur is not hoping that he falls out of the first round by any means just because he might end up on a better team.
I'm not saying
he's costing himself money.
I'm just saying, does he say, okay, maybe this is not what I wanted, but this could work out for me?
Well, also the better teams all have quarterbacks, right? So like he wants to go to a situation where he's going to play or like there's a playing plan in place for him. Not just he doesn't want to be a backup on the Chiefs.
I think in December he certainly had better odds than Cam Ward to be the number one pick. He was like a slight dog to not be the number one overall draft pick. And in the months that have followed, as he's going through this process, if people inspect his character a little bit more and also his actual skill set, it's not going the way that he wanted.
Well, those are two different things, and I want to talk about both of them because when you throw out the metric, because it's not something that we've had measured, but weak arm. Give me all the guys in the NFL that you think have weak arms who are starters, where you're just watching. Like when I think weak arm, you got to be Drew Brees, and you have to be that kind of accurate. Tua? Or were you were just coughing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay.
Allergies.
There aren't many that you would look at and say that arm's not strong enough. But when it comes to Shedeur, that is something that to the eye, I think people can look and see those outs have a little parabola in them. They're not quite Justin Herbert throws. But I want to talk about the other thing, which is what was coming out of the scouting combine was attitude stuff, was arrogance stuff, was how he was interviewing.
Is that shocking?
No.
You can understand, we all understand where it comes from. right? His dad is his biggest supporter, and he's done nothing. I think, didn't he say, "Hey, let's go to this rap concert and support my son"? He's always been in a bubble where he's playing the most important position for his dad, and everybody has to ingratiate themselves to the head coach. It's a byproduct of these environments that he's been put in.
I'm not saying that it's surprising. I'm saying that I would think that if I put all of these factors in play, that usually in hypothetical athlete X, there are things we would like. Do you want your quarterback to have belief? Do you want your quarterback to come from an upbringing of a professional athlete who knows what it takes to have the correct belief? Do you, when parenting, is there something that you can give your child that's better than the support that creates belief? Like, is there anything outside of love? What can a parent give to a child? Maybe we say discipline or something else, but what's stronger than giving your child belief? Deion Sanders is one of the most confident people in the history of sports and one of the most interesting athletes ever. That he would give his son a quarterback belief at the position. Why would that be off-putting?
It's fine, but like if you're a team looking for a quarterback, you want the parents who have given your quarterback a good arm, and we can find the belief down the road.
It's a tough data point. Famously in the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner makes a decision because no one showed up to the quarterback's birthday, and he's like, "Well, that's a big red flag." I mean, it could be because all the people that had a problem with Shedeur ended up leaving the program. Trust me, you can Google it. There have been plenty of people that have their opinions about how Deion Sanders runs his program that didn't like it and had things to say. But I could say from watching a lot of Colorado football last year, the teammates love Shedeur. So how is this actually rubbing his team? I understand where there's that concern, but in terms of rah-rah leader guy, Shedeur seems very supportive of his teammates, and the optics are his teammates love him.
When you talk weak arm, we can say that, but it didn't feel like anybody was saying that when, through the consensus of the last half of the season, he was going to be a top 5 pick.
It's also not a popular thing to say, as he's literally winning overtime. We're sending games into overtime with 40-yard passes that do tend to hang in the air. But if you think about a lot of Travis Hunter's highlights, it's a lot of individual athleticism. It was hard to know what the real data there was because all season long, it almost felt like the offensive identity for Colorado was, we're getting one of these guys a Heisman. We're just going to spam the math.
You guys are parents. Belief. Giving your child belief. The support that makes a child have confidence or believe. Like, where would it rank on how high on the list of things that you want to do as a parent?
I think right behind making sure your son's the executive producer of his friend's sports show.
I mean, there could be irrational belief. We know that. That's a genetic trait, right? That Shedeur's confidence in himself has to come from his father some way, right? Biologically speaking, but he's also plenty talented. I will support my daughter. I will go to all of her events. I've also watched her play soccer. I'm not going to fill her head with, these dreams of her playing for the U.S. women's national team. If anything, I'm going to take her out of soccer and realize this is not your calling, babe.
I want my children to believe in myself, but that has nothing to do with what the NFL needs at the position. Believing in yourself is great. You could also be not that great. I'm not saying that that's Shedeur, but what they care about is talent and arm strength and all of that. They're not handing out Nobel Prizes. They're trying to win Lombardi trophies. Who cares if you believe in yourself?
But Billy,
everyone's full of every college is full of walk-ons that believed in themselves that just weren't good enough.
The reason it's not who cares. It's being a knock. You're saying weak arm strength. The reports were he bombed the interviews and his stock dropped from the scouting combines because the executives thought he was arrogant. So it's not that belief
relative to his talent.
Because there's a balance to it. Confidence becomes arrogance when you don't have any. You have to be a little humble too. You can be confident,
also,
but you don't want to be.
If you're good enough, you can look past it. This weekend, I don't know why, but this weekend I was watching highlights of Baker Mayfield when he was at Oklahoma. And he was
on that algo too?
Yeah, and he was
when they
going
refused
back,
to shake his hand?
They didn't shake his hand, and he was talking the entire game. He grabbed his crotch. He looked at the other team. He was screaming at them the entire game. I think it was against Kansas. And the broadcasters were like, oh, the NFL scouts, they're not going to like that one. They're not going to like that in their locker room. They're going to say that's probably going to impact him. Number 1 pick. So if you're good enough, you can look past all of the arrogance. It's just a matter of if the measurables aren't there and they don't think that his arm is strong enough, they're not going to put up with it as much.
Teams love that confidence. Cam Ward has plenty of that confidence. It's when do you turn it off? When do you know that, I should be interviewing right now, not giving off cocky, arrogant quarterback? And there's something clearly happening in these interviews where his personality is rubbing those executives the wrong way. Cam has, if you ever see Cam, they work out together. Cam comes off as the more confident guy whenever they're paired with one another. But through the evaluation process, he's also a good team guy in a more conventional sense.
I mean, it's not good for like a sports radio show, but like it's all stupid, right? Like it doesn't matter how confident you are or how good your ability is. Like the NFL draft ends up being a crapshoot anyways. We were talking about it with Laramie Tunsil last week and how people, oh my God, we don't know what to do here. And then he ends up falling and then he ends up being like a multi-time Pro Bowler. So like Shedeur can fall, and he's either going to work out or he's not going to work out. And he's going to work out whether he's the number 7 pick or he's not going to work out if he's a 7 pick or work out as a 28th pick or not work out as a 28th pick. Like, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah, we could do that about all of sports.